You got your cam, you got your heads, you got your tires, you got your gears, you got your clutch. Now it's time that we make some power. But before we make power, there is one other thing I want to talk about. And I think you're really going to like this video because it's going to decide whether your car holds the power or comes apart in a million pieces. It's up to you. This build series has evolved. I never thought that it would end up being what it is. And I thought that we were going to go ahead and get into some aftermarket piston stuff and stroker talk and things like that. But no, I don't think we're ready yet. So in the last video, we talked about you picking up some heads. You got your camshaft in here. You even got your intake, right? Whether it's carbureted or fuel injection, doesn't matter. We got to make sure that we've got a good solid foundation. The first thing you need to do is make sure you have a good harmonic balancer. Look at this one. Not good, right? And there's so many of these cars running around today that have harmonic balancers like this. Spend the money. Go get you a new harmonic balancer. At bare minimum, just go to the auto parts store and get a stock style replacement. But I recommend you go ahead and buy an aftermarket balancer, because in this video, we're gonna spend some time talking about harmonics. These little 302s are already fighting a losing battle. They're not the strongest engines, we all know that, but there's some tricks that you can do to really hold this thing together and give it some good harmonics and good valve train, because that's gonna make the difference. You guys are gonna love this video. So this is gonna be your end balance. Most of these engines are either 50 or 28 ounce balanced. Most of the newer stuff, like in these cars, are gonna be a 50 ounce. The older stuff will be 28 ounce. Your strokers and everything else typically is gonna be 28 ounce as well, or 0 ounce. More than likely, you're going to probably, if you're stock bottom end, you're more than likely gonna be 50 ounce. Don't get me wrong, most of these flywheels don't just get out of balance, but while we're here, if we've got the money, new balancer, new flywheel, or flex plate if you're an automatic. Here's the difference between 28 ounce and 50 ounce. This is an interchangeable kit, meaning it's 28 ounce balance. Take this off, put this bigger one on, which will then be 50 ounce. See how the holes line up? It's the exact same thing, right? Now, this can be either a 28 or 50 ounce, or you can remove all of them and make it a 0 ounce balance. Now, the best option here is obviously 0 ounce, but you can't do that unless you pull your rotating assembly out and take it to the machine shop. So if you're gonna be building an engine, then go ahead and take my advice, go 0 ounce balance. It's just going to be a better balance. So it's internally balanced rather than externally balanced. We're talking stock bottom end stuff mainly today. We're gonna talk about bottom end main stud girdles. If you guys have the budget, then by all means, go out there and get you a stud girdle for the bottom end. This is going to help tie the block together. Let's be honest, that doesn't mean that your block's not gonna split or come apart or sling a rod. We've already proven that that's not true. They also make them for the top valley area, but I don't recommend you going through all the trouble unless you just want to. So we want our car to be a high RPM, high horsepower screamer, right? Well, these things that I'm telling you are really going to help allow the car to do that and do it safely and efficiently. So next, I recommend a windage tray. This is gonna keep all that oil from slinging up on the bottoms of the pistons. It'll free up a little bit of horsepower, and they're just good to have. Now with that, you don't have to pull your bottom end apart, obviously for the girdle and for the windage tray. Speaking of oil pan, that's gonna be our next tip. You need a good oil pan. You can get away with a stock one. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that you can't, but if you have the money and you have the ability, by all means, upgrade your oil pan. Get one with some baffles in it, something that can trap the oil and hold it where it needs to be. The 65 is living proof of a stock oil pan not being sufficient for high RPM runs, especially when the car is not, doing wheelies per se, but whenever it's up in the front end and you're holding this thing throughout the gears, everything slides to the back. Now in a FoxBody, that's not that big of a deal because you have a rear sump pickup. But in this car, that's a front sump pickup. And depending on what you have, what kind of car you have, that may be you as well. So everything runs away from the oil pump. So that kind of covers your bottom end area, right? There's not really much else you can do down there. We're gonna be trying to squeeze the most horsepower we can out of a stock bottom end FoxBody. So with that being said, there's gonna be a few tricks up top that we kind of forgot to mention in the last video. We talked about needing good valve springs. 100%, you need those, make sure you buy them. Typically, you're just gonna run pedestal style rockers when it comes to like stock heads. So that's perfectly fine if that's the case. Also, make sure your push rod length is good because certain cams will change push rod length. A good example of that is a B21 camshaft. So make sure, I think they're like 50 thousandths longer. It's not much, but it's a little bit. So just make sure that your push rods are the correct length, and always go with hardened push rods if you have the ability to, because we're going to be spinning this thing at higher RPMs. Here's the key: limited travel lifters. Yeah, they're going to wake your car up. They're going to make your cam sound good. It's going to be able to turn high RPMs. It's going to make your valve train even more stable. I am a firm believer in limited travel now. Think of it as a solid roller camshaft, and you know they can turn some high RPMs. This kind of gives you the best of both worlds. With a hydraulic lifter, it's got some cushion in there like this, right? So that valve's not opening as quick because the lifter's sitting here doing this before it pushes the valve. Anyway, we're not gonna get into all that. They give you just a little bit of cushion, just a little bit. We've already talked about upgraded valve springs, so that's gonna work out really good with these limited travel lifters. If you guys want more information, kind of look those up. I don't want to dive too deep into that right now because it's going to take up a lot of time. Also, I want to talk about oil. Just don't go cram any 2050 in your car, especially during the wintertime, because that's really rough on these things. Make sure you're running the right weight oil. Synthetic, conventional, I don't care. I don't really have a preference, but I typically do run Motorcraft because it is slicker. Literally, if you fill that oil, you'll understand what I'm saying. So run the correct weight oil for your car as thin as you can. If it starts to make too much valve train noise and things like that for you, you can thicken it up ever so slightly, especially in the summertime. But we're not gonna dive too deep into that either. With that being said, that leads us into our next mod, and it's going to be a very controversial high volume oil pump. There, I said it. You don't have to run it. I like to run them still to this day, but a stock oil pump will be fine. But this is where that deeper, nicer oil pan comes into play, because you're gonna be moving a little bit more oil and you wanna have more reserve down there, right? This is a very touchy subject. I have to be very careful on what I say here. Regardless of whatever head you have, I would like for you to try to match your bore with your head gasket, or a 4030 or a 4040, whatever you are, get that size head gasket. If you pay attention, most of your head gaskets that you go to the auto parts store to buy are going to be 4100. So you're losing a little bit of compression there. It's going to affect your quench. So it's not detrimental, don't get me wrong, but it is something to think about. And if you have the option, say you're going to go Cometic or something like that, go ahead and get the correct size head gasket. Most of you running a stock bottom end are not going to be decking your block. In other words, it's going to be stock. So your piston's not going to come all the way up flat with the deck, right? So it's going to be right underneath the deck of the block. That is what it is. There's not anything you can do about that without sending the block off. So I know a lot of you won't, but let's say you are and you have that ability, then go get your block zero decked, because at this point your head gasket is going to dictate quench. When you're still inside the block with the piston, you have to factor in that for your quench as well. There again, way too much information to dive into talking about quench, but you want to keep that 38 thousandths to 35 thousandths. If you like to push the envelope a little bit, you'll be fine. And what that means is literally the height that the piston comes up to the bottom of the head. So you want to keep that as tight as possible, because that's going to give you a good clean burn, and that ties into your compression as well. The car's going to like it. It's going to run clean. Your pistons are going to stay cleaner as well. So quench is very important. I'll put the guy up right here, the one that I watch all the time. He gives exceptional information on compression and quench and things like that. So check that, and if that's something that you guys are comfortable doing, then go with maybe a little thinner head gasket and try to get your quench right along with your compression. Be safe, guys. Do your research. So I'm going to backtrack just a little bit more and remind you of something that you can do to your cylinder heads to really help not have any detonation, any hot spots, if you will. Now, I don't have a head laying here at the moment. You're looking at your combustion chamber right here, and you got your spark plug hole. Guys, take some time to chamfer that stuff out. You can do it with one of those burr tools I was showing you, and slightly and lightly go around the inside in the combustion chamber of your head and touch these things up. You can also do it with some sandpaper, things like that. Don't get carried away in there, but what you're trying to do is get rid of sharp edges. So this is going to keep you from detonation, and you'll get hot spots on those little sharp edges, and they'll light the fuel off before the spark plug can. So look into that as well. I'm gonna let you guys do your own research on that, because that can get a little dicey trying to recommend exactly how to do that. If you use all the stuff from this video that you learned previously along with this, you're gonna have a damn good running car. Next up is extremely important, and that's going to be cooling system. You need to make sure your cooling system is up to the task as well. You don't have to go electric fans if you don't want to. You can still run a clutch fan, but just make sure that that clutch fan is in good shape. And you can spin these things and you can tell. If you spin it and it just keeps spinning on its own, it means the clutch is bad. If you spin it and it stops almost immediately, then that should be a good fan. So either one, electric fans or clutch fan, but you need to make sure your radiator is in good shape, or you need to go ahead and upgrade to a nice aluminum radiator. You can go Mishimoto, you can go LMR with their radiator, like any of those will work. Just make sure your cooling system is up to the task, because we're gonna be spinning this thing up. It's gonna be building some heat, y'all. This is gonna sound crazy, but ground straps. You wanna make sure that the engine is grounded properly. Put a couple of extra ground straps on the car. It's perfectly fine. Ground the engine to the body of the car. Also, make sure that you have a good alternator, because most of you guys are going to be running some type of, MSD. Even if, though, you're running the factory TFI modules type setup with the factory computer, you need to make sure you got good voltage. Really, these are just things you need to check and verify. More than likely, you're going to be fine. We've got good valve springs. We've got correct push rod length. We've got some good roller rockers. We've got some decent heads. We've got the correct head gaskets so that we can get that nice quench, or at least more of it, because most of you guys won't be zero decked. I understand that, but hear me out. We're dialing these things in. All these little simple things, we're dialing them in. Also, I want to add, you can shave your heads, but just know that any amount you take off your heads, if you take 20 thousandths off your heads, you're going to have to take that away from your piston to valve clearance as well. You can add that back with a head gasket if you go too far, but that's not really recommended. Just know that there is free horsepower in getting your heads shaved. Now, also with decking the block and shaving the heads, you can get into a little bit of an intake issue to where your intake needs to be shaved as well, because it won't sit on the China rails and it won't seal up good. Also, your intake ports can get out of alignment. So I don't normally recommend people do this unless you do your own research and you know exactly what you're getting into. Also, remember, if you're going to be running boost or nitrous, it's a good thing to have your rings gapped. Now, I know most people aren't going to pull their engine apart with a stock bottom end just to gap the rings, but it is recommended. If we're being completely honest, if your car's got a lot of miles on it, you probably got excessive ring gap anyway, so you should be okay, but don't take my word for it. As long as you're staying around 150 shot or lower, you should be good on your ring gap, but I can't guarantee it. I just wanted to throw that little disclaimer in there. We got good harmonics, we got a good balancer, we got a good flywheel or flex plate. Everything is balanced like it needs to be, or as close as you can get it at least, without sending everything to the machine shop. We've got good oil flow, we've got good cooling. You've got an engine now that can turn the RPM and probably hold together. Also, the windage tray and the girdle in the bottom end is really going to tie this thing together. I'm going to give you my thoughts on why these engines love to come apart and split down the middle. Why is it? It's got to do with pressure and RPM and horsepower. Sure it does. But a lot of these engines are coming apart at an early stage where they're not making maybe as much horsepower as you thought they should before they start splitting. And it's going to come down to bad harmonics. Think about that. If you got something that's just out of balance and you're spinning the hell out of it at high RPM, it's going to find the weak spot and it's going to crack. So what we're trying to get you ready for is nitrous, turbo, or supercharger. One of these things is coming up in the next video, and we're going to dive headfirst into it. It's all about getting out there and getting it done. A lot of this stuff doesn't cost a ton of money to do. It's more or less just getting out there and checking over everything. I've got to at least talk about the guy that's not going to do any of this. Is your engine just going to come apart? Is it going to fail? Is it going to be slow? No, not necessarily. It's best that you do these things, but come on. Let's be honest, most of us aren't going to go into that much detail and spend that kind of coin on a stock bottom end setup. We're just not. This is more for the guy that wants to spend the extra money, but doesn't have the money or doesn't want to go buy a full built stroker. I will tell you though, before we go, I'm probably gonna have to have a break in between this because I kind of want to turn some wrenches. So there's a few things that we need to do coming up with the Retro Fox, so we'll probably handle that, then we'll get back to this build series. So if you see a gap in it, that's what it is. Actually, before we go, if there's anything that I forgot, tell me down in the comment section. Help everybody out and let them know, because I'm sure there's a few things that I left out, or just give your opinion on what you would do in this situation to build a nice stock bottom end Warrior ready for boost nitrous. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up, and as always, thanks for watching.